Jack had always been a skeptic when it came to ghosts. He didn't believe in the supernatural, and he thought that anyone who did was just gullible. But then, something happened that would change his mind forever. It started with a dream. Jack dreamt that he was in a dark room, with no windows or doors. He felt a presence in the room, something that he couldn't see but could feel. Suddenly, he felt a pair of hands wrap around his neck, squeezing the life out of him. He woke up gasping for air, his heart pounding in his chest. At first, he thought it was just a nightmare, but then he started to feel a pressure on his throat every night. It was as if something was strangling him in his sleep. As the nights passed, Jack's condition only grew worse. The pressure on his throat became more and more intense, and he could feel the grip tightening around his neck. He tried to ignore it, thinking that it was just a figment of his imagination. But he knew deep down that something was wrong. One night, he woke up to find that he was no longer in his bedroom. He was in the same dark room from his dream, with the same presence that had been haunting him. The figure was a dark, shadowy figure, with no discernible features. But Jack knew that it was the same presence that had been choking him. The figure moved closer and closer to him, until it was right next to his face. And then, he felt the hands around his neck once again. He struggled to break free, but the grip was too strong. He could feel his breathing becoming more labored, and he knew that he was running out of time. It wasn't until he felt himself slipping away that the figure finally released him. Jack gasped for air, his heart racing. He was covered in sweat, with tears streaming down his face. He knew that he had to do something, that he couldn't keep living like this, but what could he do? He had no idea what was happening to him, or why he was being targeted. He tried to research ghosts and hauntings, but he couldn't find anything that matched his experience. As the nights went on, the attacks grew more frequent and more violent. Jack was covered in bruises, and he could feel himself becoming weaker. He knew that he was running out of time, and that he had to find a way to stop the figure before it was too late. Desperate for answers, Jack began to seek out anyone who could help him. He went to psychics, spiritual healers, and even paranormal investigators. But no one had any answers for him. They all told him the same thing, that he was being haunted by something evil, but they couldn't tell him what it was or how to stop it. Jack was starting to lose hope. He had tried everything he could think of, but nothing seemed to work. The attacks were becoming more frequent and more violent, and he could feel himself slipping away. One night, as he lay in bed, he heard a voice whispering in his ear. It was a cold, malevolent voice, filled with hatred and malice. It told him that he was going to die, that there was no escape. Jack tried to fight back, to push the voice out of his mind. But it was too strong. It seemed to be everywhere, surrounding him on all sides, and then, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A figure appeared at the foot of his bed, a dark, shadowy figure with glowing eyes. It was the same figure that had been haunting him all this time. Jack tried to scream, but no sound came out. He was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or even breathe. The figure moved closer and closer, until it was right next to him. And then, it reached out a hand and touched him. At that moment, something strange happened. Jack felt a surge of energy coursing through his body, a power that he had never felt before. He felt a sudden clarity, as if all the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. That he knew what he had to do. With all his strength, he pushed the figure away and sat up in bed. He recited a prayer that he had learned from a book on demonology, and he felt the figure recoil in fear, and then, it was gone. Jack was alone in his room, with nothing but the sound of his own breathing. He knew that he had defeated the demon, that he had banished it back to the depths of hell where it belonged. And he knew that he would never be the same again. After the encounter with the demon, Jack knew that he had to take action to protect himself. He began to research demons and other supernatural entities in earnest, seeking out any information that could help him. He learned about the power of prayer and meditation, and he started to practice both daily. He also surrounded himself with protective symbols, such as crosses and pentagrams, and he started to carry a vial of holy water with him at all times. Despite his efforts, however, Jack could still feel the presence of evil around him. He knew that the demon he had encountered was not the only one out there, and that he had to be constantly vigilant. One night, as he was walking home from a late shift at work, he felt a sudden chill run down his spine. He knew that something was following him, and he could feel its malevolent energy growing stronger with each passing moment. He turned around to face his attacker, and he saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was the same demon that had haunted him before, but this time it was different. It was stronger, more powerful, and it seemed to be aware of his defenses. Jack tried to recite his prayer, but his voice caught in his throat. He felt a sudden wave of fear wash over him, and he knew that he was in grave danger. And then, something strange happened. A figure appeared out of nowhere, a woman with long, flowing hair and a stern expression on her face. She held a staff in her hand, and her eyes blazed with an otherworldly light. The demon recoiled in fear, and Jack watched in awe as the woman banished it back to the hell from whence it came. After the encounter, the woman introduced herself as a witch, and she explained that she had been watching him for some time. She had sensed the presence of evil around him, and she had come to his aid. Jack was grateful for her help, and he knew that he had found a kindred spirit in her. He continued to study the supernatural, and he even began to dabble in magic himself. Together with the witch, he embarked on a journey of discovery, exploring the mysteries of the universe and battling the forces of darkness at every turn. And though he knew that the road ahead would be long and treacherous, he was ready to face whatever came his way. As Jack delved deeper into the world of magic and the supernatural, he became more and more confident in his abilities. He practiced his spells and incantations every day, and he even began to experiment with creating his own magic. He also continued to work with the witch who had helped him banish the demon. Together, they fought off other supernatural threats, including ghosts, poltergeists, and demons. Jack's newfound knowledge and power also helped him to overcome personal obstacles. He had always been a shy and introverted person, struggling to make friends and connect with others. But as he became more confident in his abilities, he found it easier to interact with people and to form meaningful relationships. One day, he met a woman named Sarah, who shared his interest in the supernatural. They bonded over their shared experiences, and they soon became close friends. As their friendship grew, Jack began to realize that he had feelings for Sarah. He was hesitant to tell her, fearing that it would ruin their friendship. But eventually, he worked up the courage to confess his feelings. To his surprise, Sarah felt the same way. They started dating, and their relationship blossomed into something beautiful and meaningful. Together, they continued to explore the mysteries of the supernatural, facing off against all manner of ghosts, demons, and otherworldly beings. And though their journey was not always easy, they knew that they had each other to rely on. As Jack looked back on his life, he realized that everything had led up to this moment: his encounter with the demon, his discovery of magic, and his relationship with Sarah. He knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be, and he was grateful for every moment of it. At the end of this video, thank you for listening. If you liked the story, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. This increases our encouragement to receive all new and interesting stories from the world of ghosts and mysterious powers.